Okay.
Hey!
Hey.
Welcome to the Chicken Foot Podcast. I'm Arthur Spooner, and this is my friend Silky Smooth. Wait, what's your name?
Judah McDuda.
Judah McNuda.
How you doing, man? So I'm from an undisclosed location, coming at you live from an undisclosed location, trying to bring the funny.
Yeah, so Judah's traveling, I guess, work
Mm-hmm.
issues or something.
Yeah, I got a little work issue
Yeah.
of work, yes.
So we've been getting a lot of emails about this whole whitey-tighty lawsuit and issue. People are curious why it's happening, what's going on and stuff. So just to clear things up, so we're being sued by Whitey Tighties. It has something to do with, like, Judah had some sort of memory where his neighbors were Whitey Tighties all the time, and he always wanted to go see them, and his parents wouldn't let him go see them, and he wanted to see his neighbors in the Whitey Tighty, something along those lines. And Whitey Tighty didn't like it, so they sued us, and Judah spent our budget on jokes and talking trash on Whitey Tighty. I personally support Whitey Tighty, and they support me.
What?
So for some reason, Judah just likes seeing people in Whitey Tighties, and they didn't like that, or something along those lines, and that's why we're being sued. So, but welcome to the podcast, and don't forget to follow us.
Quick, follow us!
All right. So,
Hey, so I want to say not only don't just follow us, but also give us a like. Let us know you're there. You can give us a heart if you're on Facebook. You can give us a thumbs up. You can give us a nothing. But we would prefer you give us something.
yeah. So,
Let us know you're there. And
I think that's the new trendy thing everyone's doing now.
yeah, it's real trendy. Hey, so I got a funny story to start us off.
All right, yeah. All right, let's do stories.
Okay, so it's actually on my way here. I was driving over here and I had your address in the Google Maps.
Yeah. Well, why would you do that?
What? I was trying to get to your house.
Why? there goes the joke. Okay, we had a bit at the end of the show. We had a bit at the end of the podcast, which would be really funny, of me in the corner, and nobody would know. But then all of a sudden, Junior's like, "Oh, that we're not even like 3 minutes in. You already blew it already." Son of a man, this was supposed to be hilarious. Funny.
It's funny to me. All right. Sorry for blowing that. Hey, got anything else?
Well, might as well end it. It ruined it. All right. So
anyways,
that was the surprise ending.
I didn't hear anything. What'd you say?
That was the surprise ending.
You're muted.
Why am I muted?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
So that was the surprise ending. So basically, if you haven't seen Sixth Sense, don't ask Judah. Like, there goes the whole time. All right. So go ahead and tell us your story, your funny story.
While I'm doing that, make sure your mic is plugged in because you switched mic. All right, so I was on my way over here looking at Google Maps, and it kept giving me alternate routes, and it would say like 4 minutes slower, 20 minutes slower, and I kept asking myself, who in the world? Why would you give an alternate route that is 20 minutes slower? How would that help anybody? How could that be of any use to anybody? Oh, 20 minutes slower? Let me take that route. But then I did think that there are situations where maybe you want to use the excuse, hey, I was following Google Maps, and they're like, why are you late? I was thinking maybe a funeral, or if your wife is, or if my wife is like making me go to a musical or something, and it's like, oh, babe, we gotta follow the Google Maps. 20 minutes slower. 20 minutes slower.
She's like, babe, hurry up, we're gonna miss it. Google, babe.
Mm,
This is what Google's telling me.
All right, we have one comment.
Like blowing up what your mom gave your dad for Christmas. Oh, that. All right, here's another story.
Okay.
So I somehow unjustly got this reputation that I ruin surprises in my family.
Okay.
So anytime there's a surprise, they say, don't tell Joseph, he'll ruin it. And when I was a kid, I guess I just didn't really catch on when something was a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember. It was one Christmas one year, and my dad, he used to travel for work a lot.
Okay.
And so he was traveling, and my mom had got him something. I don't remember what it was, but she showed me, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, Dad. I like it. And so when he got back, I said, hey, did you see the thing that Mom got you? And he goes, no, I'm going to wait till Christmas. But thanks. I was like, son of a.
So it totally reinforced that image of you.
Yeah. So it's almost like, hey, there's a surprise at the end of the video. Whoa. But don't tell anybody. So that was that's my reputation, is all the surprises. Joseph ruins it.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to continue some of last week. What we were talking about was tips for writing stand-up that I found on the internet. The last one, I think, let me see what it said. It says, does your jokes have you question your faith in the Mormon church?
Does your joke have you? Okay.
Just kidding. Run on. So now it's tips for performing stand-up. I actually think that this watch.
Maybe it was a watch.
Oh, it was a watch. I guess. Yeah, it reminds me of another story. So I was buying. I didn't realize that it was like almost every Christmas for like 6 Christmases in a row. I was getting my dad like a watch or a clock or something, right?
Okay.
And I didn't realize, like, once I got him it looked like a Vietnam memorial, and then it had a clock on the side, and that famous statue of you have like at the memorial where the people in their fatigues are leaning against the wall looking at all the names.
Yeah.
And it had that. And then there was a clock where it looked like, the big steering on a wooden ship.
Mm-hmm.
And then a really nice watch that I got in Dubai when I was in the Navy, and it was really nice. And then a digital one where it looked like you could touch screen way back before touchscreen was a thing.
Okay.
And so for some reason, I don't know why, I kept getting watches or clocks or something. And my dad one year just said to me, he's like, are you trying to say something? Like I'm running out of time or something? He's like, I'm running out of walls to hang clocks. He said, I don't have enough walls left. And till then, I didn't realize I was always sending clocks and watches and stuff.
What do you think it is? Why did you associate watches and clocks with stuff to be a good gift for him?
I didn't put together that I didn't think about what I got him last year. I was just thinking of like dad gifts, and my dad is like, he doesn't really have any specific of what he wants. And so I'm like, okay, what's like a nice gift? And I'm just looking around, and the next thing I know, it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool clock, and his time running out, and he has a few empty walls in the house. Why not throw up a few clocks? All right. Tips for performing. I also thought this might be helpful for people who do like public speaking.
Okay.
And it actually reminds me of another story. This is Story Central.
Oh,
Man, we got all kinds of stories going on.
Okay. What?
So we have so many stories going on. I thought I'd throw it out there. So I sometimes would do like, presentations, in college, and, sometimes I've led Sunday school and done sermons or public speaking. Yeah, I've done some public speaking. And so sometimes, I would do a joke to ease my own nerves. So whether it was funny or not, I would do something that I thought was funny. It would ease my nerves. So a friend, she said that she had to do a presentation in class, and she's really nervous. So I told her what I do sometimes, and to kind of ease it. And I told her, look, I do it because I think it's funny, but they're not really going to laugh. It's just a joke for yourself to ease the nerves. So what I told her, what I usually do is I'll introduce myself and stuff, and maybe give a little bio, who I am, and yada, yada, yada. And then I'll say, any questions? And then I'll pretend like that someone raised their hand way out in the back, and I'll be like, oh, the question in the back? No, that was a hand. I thought I saw a hand. No hand. And then everybody like looking back, like, who's he talking to, right? So I think it's funny. So she's like, oh, that's kind of humorous. I'll do that. So the next time I talked to her, she said, yeah, I tried it. And so I said, oh, is there a hand in the back? And then everyone just stared at her. Nobody looked, and she's just like with their hand in the back, and they just like stared at her. Nobody like looked back and stuff. And she's like, we're like back there. A hand? Somebody raising one? And then it made it so much more uncomfortable and worse for her that she couldn't it made it like so much more nerve-wracking for her. So I was like, well, you got to sell it. You got to be like, really make it look like somebody really did. Like, oh, a hand in that? No, I thought it's a hand scratching here. Okay.
Right. Well, she probably needs a little more comedy chops.
Yeah, everybody just like stare at you like. All right. So we are talking about tips for stand-up. And this is tips for performing stand-up, which can, I think, also help with like if you're doing any kind of public speaking or anything like that. Like if you're doing a PowerPoint presentation, sometimes some of these, as I was reading over them, can apply to people who do PowerPoint presentation. And if you ever had to sit through one, which CEUs or anything like that, people who do some of these things or don't do some of these things, you can tell which presentations you really enjoy better and which ones you don't. So the first one is don't memorize every word of your performance.
Ah, that's interesting.
So that you're not coming off as mechanical, right? So I think last time we talked about being authentic, being in the moment. And so if you write as you speak, which is not good for normal writing, but when you do bits, if you write as you speak, the way you speak, it's going to come out more natural, and so you can remember the joke without having to remember the specific words all the time, and maybe some humorous words that you think are funny.
Well, that's interesting because for me, when I had public speaking, I would always, the worst part for me was I would write everything out, and then I would get super self-conscious because I wouldn't have it totally memorized, and I'd be trying to remember it in my head. When normally I was a very good public speaker because, all right, sorry, background noises.
Oh, what happened?
It turned down your mic a little bit. Turn down the volume a little bit.
All right. How's that?
Yeah, it's fine. So,
Everything okay over there? Everything all right? This is the worst show in all of history.
I can hear
So I'm
myself,
surprised we still have our viewers.
a viewer. Well, anyway, but that's what I would do is I would they told me we had to write out the whole speech and submit it to them ahead of time, and that screwed me up because normally off the cuff I'm actually pretty good when I just kind of have something I want to say, practice it, and just go, and I'm not trying to follow. Or what I would end up doing is reading the whole thing and just
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I remember in school, Dr. Johntown Murphy would do the sermon classes, and that's what they would have to do is they would have to write out their whole sermon, and then they have to do word for word. And I mean, you see politicians when they speak, they have to read out the. I don't know how people do those speeches because to me, trying to read and make it sound like you're not reading is harder. So anytime I have to do any kind of speech, I do bullet points. So I have like a word or 2 words for the concept, and then I just kind of work on the transition when I'm reading it to myself or working through it on my own. And then if there's a funny line or a specific quote that I want, then I'll write that all out, and then I'll refer to that. But usually it's just like a couple words to remind me of the topic or the specific thing I want to say. And then I naturally let it roll into the next thing. So I could have like a index card and it could give me plenty of information. So I don't know how people can do that. But when you sit through a PowerPoint and people just read the same thing that's on there, you're just like, you know? But if they kind of have the material and those little lines spark more information than what they're giving is more entertaining.
Yeah. People that read teleprompters, have you ever tried to read a teleprompter?
No, not really.
I think it's kind of amazing. The politicians, they can look over here and then like they know when it ends, and then they can look over here to this other teleprompter. Because for me, I'd be like, the whole meta analysis of it for me, I'd just be thinking, am I doing this right? Am I on the right line?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can't do that. What I do is, like I said, I have the bullet points, and I try to. Somebody told me this somewhere along the line, and I still do this. Is I will try to make eye contact with random people in the audience, so that I'm not just looking over their heads. I think when I took public speaking, that's what he'd tell me, because I would kind of be looking down, or I'd kind of be looking around, and I wouldn't look at people. And so he said, you know, sometimes it could be intimidating, but if you just look at people's eyes, and you don't have to look at the same people, just kind of randomly, when you catch eyes with somebody, then they'll know that it feels more personal because you are locking eyes with them, but they know that they're locking eyes with you. And it could be like person behind them or next to them. They also could think you're looking at them, you know.
Wouldn't it be weird though if like they wink at you?
Yeah.
Game will throw you off.
Like, give him kissy face. No, to you, not you. The one next to you. All right. So the next one is focus on what you want to tell the audience and not on yourself. So I think it comes to what we were talking about before we started, is that sometimes you get the jitteries and you're so focused on what's going on mentally, emotionally, physically, that it pulls you out and it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't come out natural. So just kind of put that aside and say, regardless of whether I feel it or what's going on internally, just kind of get into the moment.
Well, that's interesting, because when I saw Brian Regan talking about his set, he talked about how he doesn't, because they asked him, how do you make those funny faces? Do you practice them? And he's like, no, I just practice what to say. And the funny faces come. I don't think about what I look like at all.
Yeah, well, that's his style. Is he just does funny faces? Yeah. You know, and that shows some of the sarcasm or some of the silliness of what he's saying. Is, you know, if somebody says, "Yeah, I'll be there," or they're like, "I'll be there." I don't know. That was a horrible one, but I'm sure he would do a little bit better.
That's why they pay him the big bucks.
Yeah. All right. So now is actually.
Why don't you take the tag off that thing?
Because if I want to return it, if this podcast thing doesn't work out, I can return it and get, you know, maybe a sock.
So while you were, what was you told the story? Oh, what was your story about?
Which one?
Because I thought of a story.
Oh, the eye contact, where I was making eye contact with people.
Oh yeah. So okay, so I have a story. I was in it's actually my brother, but I hear the
air conditioner.
Yeah, maybe go back to your.
It's all right. Nobody else can hear it.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so
I hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you over here too. All right.
Okay, so my brother was sitting in class. So the teacher was so boring. He kept going on and on. It was like a philosophy class, and he was so boring that everybody was asleep except for one guy, this like really nerdy kind of kiss butt guy, and he's sitting there. And the professor, he's like he's talking, and then he tells a joke. And then he just turns around and just waits for people to laugh. And my brother, like, he said he kind of woke up, and that one nerdy guy was like, I think you're flatlined on that one, Professor. This is how like out of touch sometimes teachers are with their students.
Yeah, it reminds me. Dr. John Tal Murphy.
Yeah,
we were in systematic theology, and I was in it with John Berg, and his name in college was Crazy Naked John. Okay. That's so people who didn't know him, and because they call him Crazy Naked John because he would sit in his dorm room naked. And, you know, and he would do like crazy things. So they're like Crazy Naked John. So he sat in the front. And remember, Dr. John Tal Murphy, he used to be a Methodist preacher. Mm-hmm. And I think he did it for longest time. So over the summer, he would do a traveling, you know, like revivals and stuff like that. But he was a quiet spoken person for a preacher. And he had that private little speaker. Do you remember that? And he would bring
it everywhere. Yeah,
he would bring it everywhere, and he would put the speaker and he put the little microphone on, and he was like trying to get everybody's attention. So he asked John. He's like, John, do you mind getting everybody's attention? And he turns around and goes, sex. And like everybody gets quiet, like really quiet. And he's like, well, John, I didn't expect that. And that's right. But we're in a Christian college and somebody yells out sex. Everybody's like, what? Oh, man.
That reminds me of one thing I heard recently. Shannon was talking about, because one of my daughters has like this inability to, I don't know, she has a vulnerability that when people go to high five or something, she doesn't know what they're doing. So like, one time, like somebody at church went like, you know, like this, and she goes like, she's like gonna go high five, and she like, like, what? So, but then my wife read one time somebody went like this, you know, like, give me a fist bump, and the other person was like, hello.
Like he got the microphone.
thought he was miming a microphone. So we were like, that's way worse. Don't worry. So
Is this thing on?
So from now on, if anybody goes to fist bump me, I'm going to be like, is this thing on? Hello?
Or somebody gives you the turkey. You ever hear the turkey?
Yes.
Where you go to the fist bump and then they do a high five?
That reminds me of another story.
Okay.
So I worked for a while. I worked in the Becoming a Man program with low income inner city youth, and they were like doing fist bumps and stuff. I think they did the turkey, and we were also doing the thing where if you like go to fist bump, you're like whoop, Well, I had learned this thing called the trash man, or no, it was the milkman. So you go like this, and you go like, and so I'm like, okay, go like this, and he's like, I was like, dude, just go like this, dude. And I'm like, it's like milkman. He's like, and he just like walked away, and like the other counselor came over, and he's like, dude, don't ask people to do that. That's like the gang symbol. That's like 2-6, and when you do that, it's like you're throwing down sign. There's like a throwing down a crown or something like that. I don't know the terminology. So I was like super embarrassed. I had to go up to him and say, hey, like, dude, I didn't know. And then, it makes me look like this big goofy white boy who doesn't know it. Like, I'm sorry. I was doing it. But explaining it was even worse. He was like, what are you, because the other counselor was like, what are you doing, man? Throwing down. I was like, no, it's milking.
Having you explain it, it's even more silly. You feel more embarrassed. Like it's because like the udders. Like, I'm pulling on udders and like
pulling on udders. He's like, you're having a high schooler pull on your udders. I was like,
okay. Oh man, that's hilarious.
Well, that's all I got.
Talk about two worlds collide. He's like inner city and dealing with life or death, and you're like. Oh yeah, this one would be a good one to do with your friends. You're in high school, right? Like
he's just looking at me with horror in his face, like
even if it wasn't a gang sign, he'd still be like, "What?" You're like, "I don't like that one." That one's not a good one at all.
Come on, it's not as bad as like the turkey. You're like.
It might have been better if you just like, look, got your nose. Like, oh man, you got me now.
No, he'd have been like, oh, okay, that's a gang symbol too. That's the nubs.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
It's kind of sad though in some ways.
Yeah, it is. And two worlds collide. I don't think I've ever been in a situation. Well, I have it when I lived in Mississippi. There sometimes would be really awkward situations. And at one time I was at a Subway and I was just in line trying to get something. Some guy came in and he said, man, he's griping because the bank wouldn't approve a business loan. And then he points at me. He said, I bet you could get it. And then I looked, and then I realized I was like the only white person there. And dude, I like instantly, like I was sweating. And I was like the guy's like, "Do you want lettuce?" And I was like, "No." I just want a plain ham sandwich. No, nothing on it. Bread and ham. Get out of here. And he wouldn't let it go. He was just like picking me out, and he was asking me questions. He wanted me to respond. Like, wouldn't it prove it? And I was like, I'm a student. I don't know any money. I can't do it.
Should have been like, qu'est-ce que tu veux?
Yeah. I'm like, come on, man. We utter bros, right? We're down to uttering.
That's utter failure.
You're like, oh man, that reminded me of when we were